Welcome to Sector Report. I'm David Beatson. This week, Korean fishing boats working for New Zealand companies. They're putting our international reputation at risk, but the damage could run much deeper. How the long wait for government decisions is affecting the fate of the Crayford dairy farms, and the gutsy good keen Kiwi who overcame crippling odds to revitalise agribusiness in the far north.
He's a real one-off, Murdoch Ross, and he loves the limelight and he thrives on it.
Well, this week we're leading with the story of a great Kiwi. He can't read, he can't write, he has limited mobility, and he's heading into his 60s. But none of that has stopped him reviving a vital component of the farming infrastructure in the far north of New Zealand, or from laying plans to take on another new business challenge. Our Rural Affairs correspondent Drew Chappell met up with this remarkable man at Mangakaramia.
Sheep, pigs, chickens, and of course cattle. You might think this is simply one of dozens of bustling stock sales taking place all over the country, any day of every week.
195 is there, 200 is there, 25 is here.
But you'd be wrong, because this isn't just a story about an ordinary sale yard. It's a story about a man, an extraordinary man, who had the spirit and the strength to save this ordinary sale yard from its demise.
Well, I can't believe it. That the number of people that would come to support a sale like this. It's a big lot of work with computers and office ladies and workers in yards, and it all falls on me in the day.
Meet Murdoch Ross, owner and founder of Ross Livestock Incorporated, the man who makes it all happen, almost single-handedly. Murdoch is not your average agent. For starters, he runs what is arguably the largest privately held stock and farm goods sale in the country, way up north in Mangakaramia.
$82 now, we're going to sell him.
Murdoch has never let a challenge get him down. He's battled cerebral palsy his entire life. It's a debilitating condition which affects speech and motor function, but not Murdoch's will to win.
If someone says to me, you can't do that, Manny, it makes me more determined. And I've had great support. My auctioneer is very good to me, and I've got lots of people that feed cattle into my sale. Or I might fall over tonight, not be able, you know, I don't really know how long I can keep going, so I might be going for it. Well, can we do a deal on one bull? Or two bulls?
Murdoch loves to tell the tale of how he got into the stock business when he and his sister Jennifer inherited a large piece of farmland when their parents passed on, and Murdoch needed another source of income. His accountant told him to put out some feelers into the world of stock sales.
My mate at Wrightson's, who used to carry my bag, I rang him up and he said, no, we don't do that anymore. He said, anyway, you want it put enough for us to make it worth our while. So every time I see a sale yard, it's full of my cattle, a Ross Livestock sale, full of my cattle. I think, is this enough for you, Coco?
What does he say?
I haven't talked to him for a year or two, but...
If living with cerebral palsy wasn't tough enough, imagine being run over by your own tractor. Yes, it happened to Murdoch in 2001.
It was running up my leg and it would have run right over my hand, so you would have hosed me away. Since then I've been on a walker and haven't been able to walk very well.
But that only served to increase Murdoch's determination to succeed in his business and to give back to the community which has stood by him through thick and thin.
That man that told me I would never put enough cattle in Wrightson to make it worthwhile, he's probably He probably married the first girl he ever met.
$565, we gotta sell him!
Fast forward 6 years from that conversation, and the numbers speak for themselves. His monthly sale regularly turns over close to $100,000, and it's still growing.
I picked myself and I say, is this really happening? And here we thought to run a firm, you had to have a big car and the right tie and...
But you've done that all?
We've done it, we've been there. We can move anything.
He's a great promoter and a great person for the community. But the community also get behind him. And they also bring a lot of stock here, and they trade a lot of stock every third Saturday. A lot goes back into the community. But there's a lot of people here who are helping, working, that they're not paid. A lot of them here work for nothing, being that they do, if it goes into rugby clubs, fire stations, cricket.
The Ross family name has been synonymous with the small settlement of Parua Bay, here about 40 minutes north of Whangarei, for over 160 years, after Murdoch's great-great-grandfather George settled here in 1849. It's a legacy that Murdoch is very proud of and understandably keen to continue. Murdoch's sister Jennifer lives just 100 metres down the road from her brother. She has happy memories of growing up with Murdoch in a close and supportive family.
There's one here of him, beautiful photograph of him with our dad in the pit at the with the herringbone shed doing the milking.
She says his love for his family and his steely determination to look after them keeps her brother strong.
He supports us and helps us, and he takes a great interest in the development of of the kids. So I guess in some ways, if you like, they're the kids that he might have had. However, this is the way life is played out, and so we really appreciate his his help and ideas and support.
Despite his decreased mobility and his health challenges, Jennifer says Murdoch has just recently taken a new lease on life, which is driving him on.
It's really exciting to see him now absolutely humming, full of ideas, on a high, organising. He's got a sale coming up for Project Promise, which is a local charity raising money for the oncology unit in Whangarei. And he's really working from 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, using his contacts, his networks and his skills to pull things together. He's a leader in that way. He demonstrates real leadership.
Because he's never learned to read or write, Murdoch does business, incredibly, entirely from memory.
Goodbye.
The sale tends to have a lot of lifestyle people, so small lots of cattle. And Murdoch keeps all that information in his head. He's got a phenomenal memory, and he knows exactly where everything is, where everyone is, where every cow and calf is, and he also just uses that drive to, I guess, marshal almost an army of volunteers or semi-volunteers or paid workers, and really to sort of give them that goal that they're all working together to achieve something. And I think Murdoch has led, he's established something that's quite unique.
Have you got a phone?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, ring this number. 4323830. And the cell phone number's on his answer phone. Then, bud.
What's that for,
Well, tell him you're on the way and you want someone there to unload. My hey yous have got to do it all for me.
Yeah. Your hey yous.
Yeah.
Hey you, can you help us out with this?
Hey, you help me.
Please.
Have you ever heard of a hey you?
I have now.
He's a real one-off, Murdoch Ross, and he loves the limelight, as you can see by you guys being here, and he thrives on it. Absolutely, shines in that kind of situation. Natural PR person, great marketing skills, no marketing degree, no tertiary qualification, and yet just sort of natural skill and talent.
Not satisfied with moving stock, pets and even plants, Murdoch is expanding into the world of machinery sales and will attempt to shift a fleet of former contracting equipment within the next few weeks. He may be getting older and he may be facing a tough economic environment, but Murdoch doesn't care. Seems nothing can hold him back.
Through his life experiences, it's good to see that he's actually learnt from them. He hasn't. A lot of people might have just lain down and thought it's too hard. Let's put it in the too hard basket. Forget it, But not Murdoch. He's risen to the challenge.
So, if ever you find yourself faced with a challenge which seems insurmountable, spare a thought for the man for whom every day is its own small miracle.
Drew Chappell reporting. Still to come, how the long wait for government decisions affects the Crayfor farms, and how deep is the damage caused by rogue Korean charter fishing boats. Stay with Sector Report. This month, the government inquiry has called for urgent corrective action to stop a group of rogue Korean fishing boats damaging New Zealand's international standing and the reputation of our fishing industry. The industry generates $1.5 billion a year for New Zealand, but a fleet of 27 foreign vessels chartered by New Zealand companies bring in more than half the catch from our huge offshore exclusive economic zone. The inquiry says it's heard disturbing testimony about mistreatment and underpayment of crews and serious breaches of workplace safety, fisheries and environmental standards. The government has taken immediate action on some of its recommendations, and joining us now, Neville Donaldson from the Service and Food Workers Union. Welcome, Neville. In the first instance, how does your union actually come to be involved with foreign crews working on foreign charter vessels?
Well, we've been involved in the seafood industry for many, many years, and we have always been supportive of foreign crews where they've got into dispute in any ports. We've raised issues with government and lobbied government around the concerns around exploitation of foreign workers on fishing boats.
So things like this have happened before over time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this has been an issue in the fishing industry for many years.
Let me ask you this. Do you accept the inquiry's view that the problems we're seeing in the headlines now are just being caused by a handful of rogue operators?
I think at the moment that is a fair reflection, but I don't think it's the wider reflection. It's not the history of the industry. I believe that...
You mean there have been things like this going on before?
Oh, this has been going on for years. I can recall 10, 15 years ago, Ukrainian, Russian boats being tied up, concerns around crew not being paid, crew refusing to leave New Zealand until they were paid. And that's what brought about the introduction of the code of practice within the fishing industry, which was supposed to fix all these things, but clearly hasn't.
Well, clearly hasn't. If the crews on these vessels hadn't confronted their employer, hadn't been brave enough to do that, would the situation have actually been addressed under the codes or laws of New Zealand by our maritime, our fisheries, or our labour authorities?
I don't believe so, and I think that what's created the interest in resolving it now is the international perspective, which is there are a number of countries and organisations who are now looking at New Zealand and the way that these foreign workers are being treated and saying, look, this is not good enough. There is also varying companies internationally who are no longer taking New Zealand product as a consequence of what's going on in the fishing industry. So I think finally there's a point there where it has to be addressed in the interest of New Zealand and of the industry.
Well, let me ask you this, who do we hold responsible? Because it seems we've got a whole range of intermediary companies suddenly vanish.
Well, that's the biggest problem. There is no one who can be held responsible. Under current legislation, there's very little that can be done by the agencies within New Zealand because they haven't got the legal power to do so. And that's why this has been going on for as long as it has. The unfortunate reality in New Zealand is that foreign charter vessels are being used because they are able to exploit the workforce and they're able to operate on a very cheap basis. They undermine, in some ways, the ability of New Zealand boats and crews to do this work. But it's all based on the fact that these workers are being disadvantaged, they are being exploited. And I don't think that if we continue to allow charter fishing vessels into New Zealand, that this is going to be resolved because they have to exploit the workers in order to be competitive.
Why don't we hold the quota owners responsible?
Well, again, it would take legislative change to be able to do that. Personally, I think that the only way we're going to resolve this is actually to go back to the point where it was New Zealand boats, New Zealand crews and New Zealand workers who were actually being employed in the New Zealand exclusive economic zone, harvesting and processing fish. Then we've got the regulations, we've got the laws.
Fine, but as you've pointed out, would you be able to match the cost, the landed cost of fish that these operators can produce?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't, obviously, but at the same time...
Have you got the boats to do the job?
There is boats here to do the job, yes, and the industry has said that quite clearly to the inquiry, that there is the ability to have the boats to do the work, and there are the crews there to man those boats. But at the end of the day, I mean, if we've got an industry that's totally reliant on exploiting workers to make a profit, then we've got a real sick industry.
Yeah, but these charter vessels are landing about half the catch from the economic zone offshore. That's an awful lot of catch to suddenly find somebody to step in who's been either onshore or had boats tied up or whatever in New Zealand to bring home. Do you accept that you couldn't just do this overnight? It would have to be a phased-in operation? Oh,
absolutely. And I don't think we've ever said that tomorrow we should wake up and we've regained the industry under the New Zealand operations. There would need to be a transitional process, no question of that. But I think the first part of that process is to have minimum crewing of New Zealand workers on these boats. We need to have standards of the vessels that are coming out here to fish so that New Zealand crews are comfortable working on those boats, because the standards in a lot of the charter fishing vessels are very, very low, and the boats are very, very old. And I mean, that needs to be addressed as well.
Quickly and finally, everything's gone quiet. Has the problem gone away?
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much. Neville Donaldson, spokesperson for the Service and Food Workers Union. And coming up, the future of the Crayford Dairy Farm empire remains in political limbo. That's next on Sector Report. The future of the Crayford Dairy Farm empire is still hanging in the balance. The government says it won't be appealing against a High Court decision overturning its approval of the sale of 16 Crayford farms to the Shanghai-based Pengjin International Group. The Prime Minister says no time frame has been established for the completion of a review of Pengjin's proposal. The New Zealand-based Crayford Farm Purchasers Group has launched another appeal to the court. Its iwi members are talking about a treaty claim against Landcorp and Land Information New Zealand for their role in the sales process, and some have occupied a wahi tapu site on one of the farms. Well, it's now 2.5 years since the Crayford farms went into receivership, so how is all the uncertainty affecting their operation, the people who work them, and the creditors still waiting to get their money back? Brendan Gibson from Kordamentha, the Crayford Farm Receivers, joins us now. Brendan, thanks for joining us. What is the impact of this delay on your operation as the receiver and the farm operations?
Look, David, I think it's gone on a lot longer than any of us thought when we started this back in October 2009. The main impact of the delay is probably we've had to operate this business season to season. We're ultimately looking to sell the assets and have been from day one, and those buyers may have different views on what they want to do, so we've got to maintain the business, and probably the biggest impact is we've only really been able to contract season to season with the share milkers that we've got operating the properties at the moment. And obviously in terms of our major stakeholders, the banks, they would have liked to have had it finished earlier, but from a they understand the value proposition, and we've just unfortunately ended up in this time frame.
The farm group went bankrupt. Now, is it operating profitably? Is it costing you money while you sit?
No, obviously pre-interest we are making money. These are profitable operations. We've got bids on the table which would indicate they are profitable operations, and we're continuing to operate them profitably. We're very comfortable with the financial performance relative to what we got delivered on the first day, and what we've been able to slowly move through in the last couple of seasons that we've been operating the properties.
It's actually been a boom period for dairying. Have you been able to take advantage of that at all? I mean, or have you just really done a season to season status quo type management?
Oh look, we had to do when we took it over, there was some significant issues in animal health and RMA resource management issues. We have had to, with the support of the banks, reinvest in the properties. But there is still, obviously, as you're aware, the current purchaser is proposing to spend a significant more amount of money, which indicates that there's more to do. We have maintained the property. We think we've improved them, but clearly there is further ways to go.
I know that the Crayford Farm Purchasers Group has alleged that the properties have deteriorated. What's your view?
Oh, we totally refute that, and I'm not sure how they could make that assessment.
Well, they say some of their members live next door to them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we would disagree with that. We've got a management team which we think strong. We've got a group of share milkers that we think are operating very well. Financially, we've been making improvements. It's taken a lot longer. We would have thought we weren't still here in March 2012. But no, we would totally refute that the properties deteriorated.
Originally, as I recall, there were 22 properties in the group. You've got 16 involved in the Pingjin sale proposal. What's happened to the other properties?
4 went with another receiver. He subsequently on-sold those.
They have been sold? They have been sold
to UBNZ, which was a party we contracted with. They didn't go for OIO approval, and as we understand, those properties have been remarketed at the moment. There's another 2 that were leased that the landlord took them back, so we're back to the 16 that we're selling.
Tell me why you've opted to go for a sale of the properties as a group rather than individually.
Look, I think there's been a lot of misinformation about what we actually did in the middle of 2010. We instructed Baileys to market the properties offshore and domestically, significantly domestically. We printed 20,000 brochures, of which 99% of them got delivered in New Zealand. The advertising was totally consistent domestically and internationally, and we received over 50 bids for individual or groups or all of the properties following that process. The current offer with Pingjin was the successful one. Domestically, people have had the opportunity through that period to bid for the properties. Unfortunately, as you'd be well aware of, our job is to optimise the price, which we think we've done.
Have you actually given any consideration to bids other than that of Pingjin?
We've remained of the view that the Pingjin offer is the best in the interest of what we're required to do. And while it's not their decision, the banks are supportive of the process that we've run.
Is your door closed?
Oh, at the moment we have a current agreement with Pingjin, and we're awaiting the OIO response to their resubmitted or reconsidered application, as I understand.
Are you actually involved in that process?
We don't have any direct contact with the OIO. That's between the purchaser and them, and discussions are ongoing there, and we're awaiting an answer.
You're in a situation now where you've got iwi saying we've got treaty claims against one of the potential partners in what would be the farming enterprise by Pingjin, and Land Information New Zealand, which has been involved through the Overseas Investment Office. They're actually occupying one of your farms, or a site on one of your farms. What are you doing about that?
Look,
is that interfering with you?
Look, we were disappointed that came up at such a late stage.
Were you aware that there was a potential for that?
Well, no. The site that the people have been on, they're no longer on there. Mm-hmm. That's been identified as something that will be returned to the Crown under the Pingjin offer. Mm-hmm. What the Crown do with it, I don't know. But that particular site has been carved out. We were disappointed that happened. It is private land. We've had to deal with that. We've worked with the local kaumātua and the police, and the sole occupier has now gone. Final
question. Can you give me your assessment of the impact of this prolonged process and all this controversy on offshore interest in New Zealand farm properties?
We're hearing through our agent contacts that this is getting a lot of coverage offshore, and is obviously causing some concern about people that may be looking to invest in rural land in New Zealand. Clearly people will be concerned about what the rules are and whether they will express an interest in coming down here.
If you'd known it was going to be this complicated at the beginning, is this a receivership you would have still wanted to have?
Oh, look, we have challenging assignments all the time. I've got to say this has been one of the more difficult, particularly for the length of time. But hopefully we will get a result in the near future.
Brendan Gibson, thanks very much.
Thanks, David.
Brendan Gibson from Crayfor Farm Receivers, Corder Mentha. And that's all for this week. And remember, you can check out all of our programming at any time online at country99tv.co.nz. Thanks for your company. I'm David Beatson for Sector Report. See you next week.